Hello Gasted 94 years old, Angie Dickinson finally speaks with a type of honesty that only time permits. No studio contracts to safeguard. No image to keep. No audience to impress. Just memory. Just truth. And when she finally comes everything about Ricky Nelson, it isn't the dramatic bombshell they expected. It's something quieter. Sadder. And significantly more revealing. Because sometimes the darkest secrets aren't concealed crimes or shocking betrayals. Sometimes they're the silent struggles no one wanted to see, beneath the spotlight that never turned off. Angie Dickinson's journey begins long before Hollywood ever called her name. She was born Angeline Brown on September 30, 1931, in the little town of Colm, North Dakota. Her childhood occurred amid the Great Depression, in a home focused on hard work, intelligence, and discipline. Her father operated a newspaper, and from him she inherited a respect for language, ideas, and keen observation. That early exposure to storytelling and truth-telling would silently shape the woman she became. When her family went to California, her world enlarged. She wasn't born into celebrity. She studied business and acting, attended college, and moved into showbiz almost by accident after appearing in a televised beauty contest in the early 1950s. That presence led to a contract with Columbia Pictures, plunging her into the old studio system at its height. But what made Angie stand out wasn't only her amazing beauty. It was her knowledge, her tenderness, and her grounded presence. She didn't feel distant or untouchable. She felt real. Throughout the 1950s, she worked her way up from modest jobs to huge performances. Then came 1959. Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo. Standing beside John Wayne and Dean Martin, Angie played Feathers, a fearless saloon singer who didn't cower in a room full of legends. She was playful, strong, feminine without being frail, independent without sacrificing vulnerability. The performance made her a star. But more importantly, it established a trademark that would define her career: roughness combined with emotional realism. The 1960s solidified her as one of Hollywood's most versatile performers. She moved smoothly across genres: drama, thriller, western, comedy, never allowing herself to be trapped in. Films like Ocean's 11, The Killers, and Point Blank revealed her willingness to take risks. Especially in Point Blank, when her controlled, psychologically deep portrayal reflected the changing face of American cinema. She adapted as Hollywood progressed, proving she could endure both the polished studio age and the grittier new wave that followed. Then television changed everything again. In 1974, Angie Dickinson featured in Policewoman, becoming the first woman to front a successful primetime police drama. At a time when female characters were often ornamental, she played Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson with authority, empathy, and intelligence. She wasn't only solving crimes. She was quietly altering how women could live on TV. The show became a cultural landmark, inspiring generations of female-led dramas that followed. As years went, Angie became increasingly choosy. She didn't chase stardom. She chose roles that attracted her. In 1980, Dressed to Kill exposed her to a new audience and reminded Hollywood she was brave. In the 1990s, she astonished viewers again with daring, unnerving performances in productions like Wild Poems and even Cowgirls Get the Blues. She welcomed characters who were dark, sharp-edged, and ethically complicated, dismissing any lingering aspirations of classic Hollywood glamour. Even off-screen, she remained fiercely independent. When a television show sought to cast her life in sentimental reminiscence, she simply walked off the set. Angie Dickinson refused to let anybody else define her tale. Her personal life reflected the complexity of her job. She married young, divorced, retained her identity, traveled the world, established friendships with intellectual heavyweights, and subsequently married musician Burt Bacharach. Together they welcomed their daughter Nikki in 1966. Nikki was autistic, during a period when little help existed for youngsters like her. The challenges were great. And when Nikki died by suicide in 2007, it marked a sadness that never truly left Angie's life. Burt Bacharach passed away in 2023, concluding another chapter of shared history. Through success and tragedy, Angie endured. Quietly. gracefully, without spectacle. And now, at 94, she focuses on a relationship that has long inspired whispers, Ricky Nelson. When Angie and Ricky crossed paths in the early 1960s, they stood at quite different stages in their lives. Angie was an established actress, confident in her art. Ricky was America's golden adolescent idol, adored by millions, his face on magazine covers, his voice resonating from radios across the country. On the surface, he had everything. But Angie saw something else. He was adored, she recalls. And that kind of adoration can be a prison, especially when you're so young. People muttered about their age gap, fantasized about romance, imagined controversy. But Angie insists the underlying distinction wasn't age. It was experience. Ricky had been famous since boyhood. He had never known obscurity. Never had the freedom to discover who he was without an audience observing. I don't think people understood how much that took from him, she says. He never really had the chance to become himself. Behind the flawless grin and polished performances, she found a shy, sensitive young guy. Polite. Old-fashioned. Introspective. And quietly lonely. According to her, Ricky suffered under the weight of expectation. He wants to improve as an artist. To be considered seriously. Not simply adored. But the image constructed around him was tough to escape. Fame had frozen him in time, forever youthful, forever flawless, forever captive. There was no agenda between us, she claims. No Hollywood game. Just two folks discussing. Laughing. Trying to comprehend each other in a world that didn't slow down for anyone. She believes she may have been one of the few people Ricky could speak to honestly. No screaming fans. No handlers. No constructed persona. Just a moment of being human. As years passed, their lives moved in various directions. But she never forgot him. And when Ricky Nelson died in a horrific plane crash in 1985, the news touched her hard. It felt unfinished, she says. Like he never got the chance to live the life he wanted. That crushes my heart to this day. She pondered who he would have been if time had allowed him to age, evolve, escape the shadow of his own reputation. At 94, Angie doesn't talk with bitterness. Only kindness. Ricky wasn't weak, she says. He was sensitive. And sensitivity is perilous in a world that prizes image above truth. She hopes history remembers him not simply as a teen idol, but as a talented, lovely human being behind the celebrity. In finally sharing her truth, she isn't altering the past. She's humanizing it. Stripping away myth. Leaving memories. And maybe that's the real lesson in Angie Dickinson's narrative. Fame is dazzling. But it can blind. It can freeze people in jobs they never selected. Angie survived Hollywood by refusing to let it define her. Ricky Nelson didn't have that chance. His life became a metaphor of what happens when the spotlight never turns off. So when Angie talks now, at 94, it's not about exposing scandal. It's about unveiling something more profound. The cost of fame. The loneliness behind applause. The quiet humanity behind public image. And maybe that's why her voice still matters. Because after everything, the stardom, the grief, the loss, the reinvention, she's still saying the truth. On her own terms. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think fame is a blessing, or a prison? And what other Hollywood stories should we study next? Until then, remember, behind every mythology is a human being, wanting to be understood.